Welcome to Tales of Hope, where every paw print counts. 𝗕𝗥𝗄𝗃 in the house, spreading love, hear the sounds. Every week animal stories, rights and welfare in the mix. Step up, take action, we're giving animals a fix. Tales of Hope, raise your voice, make some noise. Change the game for every animal, girl and boy. One world, one fight, let's turn the page. A future for the voiceless, bring hope to center stage.
A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our listeners wherever you are in the globe. Today we have a very interesting personality with us, Olivia Evans, who is the founder of BRAX Foundations. And apart from that, she does a bit of multitasking as well, where between 9 to 5, she works for Born Free Foundation. Olivia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule to be on the show with us.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk about everything animal welfare, and really excited that I have the opportunity to talk about the BRAX Foundation as well. It's quite a newly set up foundation, so yeah, really good that we can sort of get the word out there about that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm sure our listeners would start supporting your foundation as well. Now, what was one moment or encounter that first awakened your compassion for animals? Not just as beings to love, but as lives to protect.
It's actually really hard to pin down to a specific moment, because ever since being really young, I've loved animals, and I think I realized quite early on in my life that they have the ability to suffer, and sort of saw that. I was about 10 or 11 when I started asking questions about where our food comes from and connecting the dots there. So that was when I first stopped eating meat. And as for sort of other forms of exploitation, I think, as I said, it's always been in my instinct to nurture and care for animals, and not harm them. And I've always been upset whenever I've seen that happen. But I guess a pivotal moment for me, this was several years ago now. I was the guy that I was dating at the time, so I ate fish but not meat, and the guy I was dating, his family brought over this huge salmon, and it was just the whole thing. It was huge, with the eyes on, the fins, the scales, and I remember they gave it to me thinking it was really thoughtful because they knew I didn't eat meat. And they handed it to me, and I was just stood there looking in the eyes of this fish, just completely frozen. And I actually just burst into tears, and kind of uncontrollably. And that was, I think my partner even said to me, like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know why they've done this." And I was like, "But actually, I do eat fish, so it makes sense that they would bring me fish." But it was just that one moment looking at this fish, and she even had her eggs inside her as well, and I could see that. It was just so horrifying to see that this food that had been brought to me was actually just a creature that didn't want to die. So that's something that stuck with me a while, and after that I immediately went vegan. So it was a big sudden change. So I'm not really sure why that was different to other things that I've witnessed, but that's one that really stands out for me.
That's quite an inspiring tale, to be honest, for our listeners. I hope even if we can inspire one listener to turn vegan or vegetarian, and not kill just to satisfy our taste buds, I think that would
Absolutely.
Really be something, Now, how do you personally cope with emotional weight of witnessing suffering in your advocacy work?
This one is so hard. So I'm involved in a lot of direct rescue work through the BRAX Foundation. We predominantly rescue cats, but it's sort of any animal that we get alerted about, we will try to help. So obviously, there's a lot of rescue involved there, and then also with my job as well. I see rescue cases, so it kind of is a never-ending cycle. There's no end to it, and when you see images of animals being abused, or even sort of witness it in real life, it can be really taxing mentally. And it's obviously amazing when you save one individual animal, and that's really fulfilling in the moment. But I think there's a constant feeling that there's other animals just like them out there still suffering, and that's the hardest part. And I don't think it will ever be easy, in all honesty, but I think one thing I do to try and make it better and manageable is surrounding myself with like-minded people, people who stand against the same injustices and want to see the same future in the world as me. And I think that helps a lot, just knowing that there's other people out there who care the same. And it just sort of makes the fight a lot less daunting, I guess. So yeah, just surrounding yourself with people who have the same passions, it can make such a big difference, definitely.
Absolutely. You just pulled the right words, surrounding yourself with the people who align with your cause. And, they have the same vision. It is such a emotional relief, because you feel connected to them, and there are other people who have the same passion towards, the animals suffering what they are going through. That's one of the reasons, like I was telling you, that's one of the reasons why this podcast came into being, is to connect with like-minded people and, build a network of people so that we can all be connected and, can be a support pillars for each other, sort of thing.
Absolutely. The support is so important, just to not sort of get overwhelmed mentally.
Yes.
And lose hope as well. It's
so easily we can be off track, lose hope, because once you realize you're not alone in this cause, I think that keeps, as far as I know, that's what keeps me going, because I know there are a lot of other souls as well who have the same vision,
Absolutely, yeah. It makes a ton of difference. So
absolutely,
totally with you on that.
Now, the BRAX Foundation was born from deep compassion that you have. What inspired its creation, and what vision of justice or healing lies at its core?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. It's actually very personal to me. So my cat Braxton is who the BRAX Foundation is named after. I sadly lost him just over a year ago now, and it was a sort of tragic situation. He needed a surgery, which went really well, but it was actually the aftercare of the surgery that caused his decline. And yeah, he sadly didn't make it. So he was only 4 years old, which is obviously very young for a cat. He should have had me in his life for several more years. So I was really heartbroken by that. And he was, of course, a rescue cat as well. So I sort of wanted to turn my just complete upset and fear of never seeing him again. I wanted to turn that into passion to help other cats and other animals in need. So it was actually sort of by chance that I was contacted about this rescue case with 38 cats living in one room in an apartment. And yeah, I think I've become known as somebody that can always help cats in a situation. So I was contacted about that. Nobody else seemed crazy enough to take on this single case. So I got involved in that, managed to rehome. The 38 cats actually ended up being like 51 in the end, because there were kittens from the pregnant ones. So I managed to rehome them all. I obviously, at this point, the BRAX Foundation didn't exist, so I had no funds. I just had to sort of single-handedly fundraise to cover the vet bills, the food bills, the litter bills, and things like that. And I managed to do all of that. And from that, it made me realize I could make something even bigger and help even more animals from this. So yeah, I decided to set up my own charity. We're not a registered charity yet, but hopefully in the future. And yeah, we basically aim to rescue animals from cases of neglect and exploitation. So I think people often overlook that breeding domestic animals like cats is a form of exploitation, and we want to see the end of that. The suffering that we see on the streets or even in people's homes, of not just cats but dogs, guinea pigs, rabbits, all sorts of domestic animals. it's all caused by sort of people wanting to breed these animals, and there's too many in existence that can't have the loving homes they deserve. So that's our sort of passion, to try and fight against that, and help as many animals in the process as we can.
I'm going to be sure BRAX will be very happy for what you're doing, in paying back homage to him. I'm so sure about that.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, that means the world to me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now, every foundation begins with a story. Your moment was with BRAX. The passing. But, sometimes it is more than that. What made you say, I want to do more than that?
I think knowing, like, seeing these animals from the rescue case I talked about, with the 38 cats that turned into 51. These cats had been living in sort of one it was a conservatory their whole lives. Some of them were like 2-3 years old, so they'd never left that room. They were inbreeding. They'd never been given the love and care they deserved. So it would be understandable for these animals to sort of lose faith in humans, but yet the love and affection they were showing, and how I could see them thrive when they finally made it to their forever homes, that was so rewarding. And it was just so wholesome to see these animals that had been, just given the worst start to life, had somehow still managed to find sort of trust in people. And I didn't want to give up on that, and I didn't want to give up on them or other animals like that. So I think that really, it made me see the value in helping animals as much as I can. And you always get people say, oh, you're never going to make a big difference. There's 8 billion people in the world. You're just one. But you make a huge difference to that one individual. Even if you save one cat, you've made a difference to their entire life. But now with the BRAX Foundation, I can do that, multiple times over. So I think just seeing the benefit to those animals after everything they'd been through, and they finally got the nice life they deserved, I think that really spurred me on to do more. And I could see that I was able to do it even under a lot of pressure financially. I was still able to fundraise and do it, so that made me realize I need to do as much as I can, and be as good as I can for the animals that need us, because they don't have enough people fighting for them.
Absolutely. Liv, you also mentioned a very important aspect. I believe what you said very clearly. It's not only you, but I think a lot of other guests also, and a lot of other people that I have been even talking to. And same thing goes with me even, what you rightly said. Even if we can save or rescue a life of one animal, that makes a huge difference. And that's where I think the start is. To me, I don't want to boast about it, but when I came back from Singapore to India, when I moved back, I was taking care of 17 cats in Mumbai.
Love that.
And when I moved to Pune, which is my adopted city, we have 3 of our own. 2 are rescues, but these are not cats, these are dogs, and 2 of them are huge. Labs. 2 of them are rescues, and 1 is in Indy, which we just got home last Christmas. And then I take care of another 7 at my mother's compound. And the one that I've rescued, or which we have at home, is actually from my mother's compound, even because somebody had drove a car over her legs. And by the grace of God, today this little one is healthy, happy, and kicking. She is absolutely. And that's what me and my wife, I remember we used to always talk about it before we got a home, is even if we can, because out of the 3 kids that were there, which I was taking, which I'm still taking care of, this one needed, if we would have left her in the compound, she would have just gone. We would have lost her. But fortunately, I think, as God's will, she needed to be with us in our lives. So we have her at home, and she is like another queen, what we have, because now we have two queens at home, to be honest.
You can never have too many, though.
Absolutely. But you also rightly mentioned, see, what happens is, when you're funding it from your own pockets, there is a limited resources that you work with. And let's be honest, I mean, people have a lot of misconception that we get funded. In India, I'm talking about in India, people have this misconception that you're getting funded from people or you're getting funded from the government, but they actually don't realize that most feeders, rescuers, and people like us, they do it all from their own pockets. It's from their own. I mean, we cut our own stomachs to make sure that we can take care of them. It is not that we're getting money coming in. It's actually from our hard-earned money, our savings, salaries, or whatever it is. We cut corners to make sure that we can support them, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've sold things online just so I can sort of pay for a vaccine for a cat and stuff. Yeah, I think people don't realize, and often like vet bills especially can be so expensive, and there can be unexpected costs. I had one cat that I've rescued about 3 weeks ago. I got a call about a cat that was in a really bad state near Heathrow Airport. So got him. He needed 4 days in intensive care at the vets. The bill was over £2,000. So he's
Wow.
luckily fine now, and he's got a forever home now as well that absolutely dote over him. But yeah, that bill still stands, and it needs paying. And yeah, we do struggle. All of us in rescue. So yeah, people don't realize how hard it can be. And yeah, without government funding and things, definitely.
Absolutely. It's something like a misconception which people are carrying, but it's people like you, me, and all the other souls who actually work. We know how difficult it is for us. It's a fight. It's a fight that we live every day, to fight another day, sort of thing.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Now, what are the most subtle or hidden forms of captivity that society often ignores, both in zoos and in our everyday lifestyles?
I think the pet trade is actually one of the worst for this. There's obviously the illegal wildlife trade for exotic pets. So whether that's cheetahs being smuggled or sort of exotic reptiles, amphibians, just kept in horrendous conditions during transit and then at trading shows or in pet shops. People don't, I feel like often, especially the small animals and invertebrates and things, are overlooked a lot by the public, and it's almost because they're so distant to us as species, they're harder to relate to and be empathetic towards. So people don't think about like the breeding of fish or the breeding of snakes or whatever. But that's a huge issue. But even sort of closer to home, breeding dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, it's totally unnecessary in this day when we've got millions of animals worldwide that need homes, and are often put to sleep because there's nowhere for them. But yet we've got backyard breeders and even, professional breeders. They're all adding to the problem. And that is a form of captivity, especially for these, when you're considering sort of wild animals, especially who, wildlife belongs in the wild. So we shouldn't be breeding snakes just to have them kept in a glass tank in somebody's living room. So I think that's one that people forget about because they almost separate pets as something that belongs in captivity. Obviously it's slightly different for domesticated animals like cats. We don't want to be releasing them to the wild, but we still shouldn't be sort of breeding them and adding to the problem. I think another one though is there's a lot of tourism activities that happens in all sorts of places in the world. Whether it's riding a camel or riding a donkey or taking a horse and carriage in New York City or taking a photograph with a parrot or a tiger, swimming with dolphins. So many of these activities on the surface look fun, harmless, something that should be celebrated. And yet the behind the scenes, the exploitation of those animals being kept captive and just suffering and being held against their will and often neglected in very bad ways, is just not, it's not worth the selfie, it's not worth the swim, we need to put an end to that. So I do see positive changes. I think a lot of people are waking up and realizing, actually, I don't want to ride a camel when I next go on holiday. But there's still such a large way to go to get that as a sort of universal ban.
You see, that's a good thing. A lot of people are waking up. You see, even in India, we have a lot of issues like this, where if you go to Rajasthan, we have the elephant rides that take place. Then there is another place where they use donkeys as transport couriers, and especially this happens to be a holy place sort of thing. And with the kind of state these animals are, not taken care of properly, not fed properly, it's a sad state of affairs, to be honest. But I think, people still need to wake up, and we need to question, do we really need these things? Do we need, the animals to be treated the way are they being? I think that is something that, as humans, we need to ask ourselves more than anything else.
Absolutely. And I think the problem is almost the general consensus is sort of viewing animals as objects that we can gain something from, commodities, and they should never be viewed in that way. Even if we're if somebody has a donkey in like the best conditions, but you're still making that donkey work, that is still exploitation. Obviously, it's a better scenario than a donkey being beaten to work, but it's still a form of exploitation, and it's still, we need to reconsider why are we making a donkey do work for us? The donkey doesn't expect work from us in return. So it's changing that mindset that animals are not here for us. We should be sharing the world with them, and not using them to our advantage. That's the saddest part of it, I think.
I think we can keep debating about this seriously, because we humans have this tendency of thinking that everything belongs to us and we are the most superior beings on this planet. So everything has to be at our convenience, without realizing what the Supreme Being has sent us or why actually we're born. I mean, it's not to exploit the animals or the other beings, or even for that purpose we are exploiting our nature, we're killing life, and this is not something that we were born for. It's something that we need to question ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, in your view, how does storytelling empower animal rights activism in a way that statistics alone can never do?
Yeah, I think people are often visually struck by things. There's a reason films are more popular globally, I guess, than books. People can relate a lot more and are impacted a lot more by sort of emotionally witnessing something, I think. I know that's definitely true for me, because I guess it's more having the ability to relate to something and feel empathy. If I say like polar bear populations have declined by X% in the last 20 years, that's a sad fact. That's not something you want to hear, but it doesn't have that emotional response in someone. It doesn't trigger a sort of outrage feeling. Whereas, imagine I tell you a story about a polar bear who's fighting against all odds to try and keep her last cub alive because the other ones have died. That's already pulling more at your heartstrings. Every parent out there is going to relate more to that, just from their instinct to want to protect their children. And just anyone who's been through hard times, it's once you've got that connection to an individual, and you see that polar bear as an individual through that storytelling, it makes it a lot more emotional in terms of your response, I think. So while statistics definitely have their place, you know, we need to know what is happening to wild populations, or how many cats are being put to sleep each year. You know, we need to know these things. But I think storytelling is the way to really get people's emotional responses, and then hopefully get them to act on that emotional response.
You know, during this statement you made, visually things really change for people.
Yeah.
I'll give you my personal example, like you mentioned your fish example. You know, I'll be honest, when I was young, I think I turned vegetarian at the age of 15.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those days, because I remember during my childhood, I used to go to the butcher's shop to get the meat home and everything. And I remember that, I don't remember the exact date and everything, but I remember that day when I went to the butcher's shop and I saw this goat being butchered.
Oh, yeah. That must have been very hard.
I tell you, that day till date, I've never had meat. Forget meat. I've never had eggs, nothing. But that was the day which actually changed my perspective of, being not killing life to satisfy my taste buds. I think, in the family we had everybody, one by one, everybody turned to vegetarian. The first one was my mother, because of the spirituality aspect even. And then slowly and steadily it moved towards my dad, me, and that's how we all one at a time. I think it was one soul changing at a time, aligning with the purpose sort of thing. But for me, that was one day where it actually made me think, are we really doing the right thing by eating meat just to satisfy our taste buds sort of thing? And that visual of that animal crying and the whatever that was something that actually was heart-wrenching, and that's when I said no more. And I think I've stuck to that for almost now about 40 years.
Wow.
So I think, but I think that is something that when your time, I also believe that when it's your time and your call to align with the purpose, you just change it. It just happens naturally. You don't have to pretend to be something, to do something that you don't want to do. It just naturally.
It almost feels like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me it was almost like a switch had like flicked inside me, and I was like, wait, like I know I often get asked, oh, don't you miss cheese, or don't you miss pepperoni pizza or whatever, and I'm like, actually no. It's now it like the thought of it disgusts me, because like that switch went, and now I'm like, I don't see animals as food at all. So when I see pepperoni, I'm like, that's an animal, that's a pig, and I just don't see that as food. So I think that's just a sudden switch to aligning your actions with what you truly believe. I think deep down a lot of people would agree animals, we don't need to use them, and including for things like food, but it's just that they don't then actually act on that thought, because maybe they haven't really thought about it deeply, even though it's in there, and that switch just hasn't gone off yet for them. I
think some time back, I think probably in 3 weeks' time, we will have one of the episodes where we have this person from UK, Dr. Andrew Knight, who really advocates more for the veganism. And not only that, he advocates, but he also has proven scientifically how beneficial it is for not only for the human race, but even for the environment, if we switch to the vegetarian, to vegan or vegetarian, whatever it is, but not to kill, life just to satisfy our taste buds or food. So and he was also being, specific about if we could, change our eating habits of our animals even, or the pets that we have at home is to try and switch them to the vegan diet, because that will also enhance his life by about 1.5 times, which was actually an eye opener for me. So I mean, it's work in progress sort of thing for our animals, to be honest. I'll be very honest, for our pets, it's work in progress for us.
Yeah, definitely. It is. Yeah. But yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you said there.
Now, do you think empathy for animals is innate in all humans, or does it need to be reawakened?
Uh, I'm probably quite pessimistic here, actually. I think there's definitely people that can be reawakened, so to say, and they do have the ability to be empathetic. Um, but I think maybe I've just witnessed too many times where people have been just showing such little care for other beings, that I've almost lost faith in the idea that all humans are capable of having empathy. I think the vast majority are, and it's just a case of getting them to that point, whether it's through education or visual, them witnessing animals suffering. But yeah, for the majority, I think the empathy is there and just needs to be sort of triggered, for them to act on. But I think maybe there are some people who are, I mean, I guess like clinically psychopathic, and that, they're not. There's definitely people out there that I've witnessed, and I look at them and think there's no hope for that person. I just don't think they're going to ever have the empathy for animals, and it baffles me. I can't relate to that, because I think, like I said earlier, I can't remember a time when I've not like felt that animals are other beings, and they can feel and suffer and love the same way that we do. So I struggle to relate to people that haven't realized that for themselves yet. Yeah, so probably a pessimistic answer there. Sorry.
No, it's not. It's not pessimistic. Let's be very honest. We are all different beings, and I always believe respect everybody's perspective and view, because our perspectives and our views come from the experience that we've seen with our lives. So, until and unless you don't respect that, I think, you can never fully understand or comprehend what that person is going through. So please, it's just that's the way, or that's how your experience has been with people. I mean, if I share with you my experience, you'll be surprised with the kind of hostilities. I mean, I don't want to say that, but at times I do tell you, you won't believe it. My 85-year-old mother was threatened because I was taking care of the small puppies. So imagine, I deal with that on a daily basis, to be honest.
Crazy, yeah.
But that's the way it is, I mean, yes, sometimes you feel, there's no hope for these people. But then I think the reason we've all been created different by the Supreme Being, there's a reason for all of us to exist out here. So when your reason comes, for you and me, we know our alignment, that this is something that we are aligned to do. Doesn't have to be with everybody else, but we are all on our own courses of journey. Yeah. And we all have to deal with our own karmas even. So let them deal with their own karmas, to be honest.
That's true.
Now,